She thought she was doing something small, just a simple act of politeness on a crowded bus. But the moment the old woman looked into her eyes, everything changed. A story long buried resurfaced, one she never expected to hear. And by the time the bus stopped, she was in tears. Ayesha sat quietly on the city bus, her backpack resting on her lap, her eyes fixed on the window. The day had been long, too long. As a new graduate trying to make ends meet in a bustling city, life had not been kind lately. She had been attending interview after interview, only to hear the same disappointing words, "We'll get back to you." But no one ever did. Her parents called her every evening trying to sound cheerful, asking if she had good news. She always replied with the same forced confidence, "Soon, inshallah." But deep inside, her hope was slowly fading. She had started to feel invisible, just another face in the crowd, unnoticed, unheard, unimportant. Today was no different. She had just left yet another interview that ended with a polite smile and empty promises. Her feet ached from walking, her mind was exhausted, and her heart felt heavier than her backpack. She boarded the evening bus, looking for a little peace. The bus was crowded, office workers scrolling on their phones, mothers calming tired children, teenagers laughing loudly in the back. People came and went, but no one made eye contact. Everyone lived in their own bubble. Ayesha finally found an empty seat and sank into it with relief. For a moment, she closed her eyes, letting the soft rumble of the engine soothe her tired soul. She just wanted one quiet ride home. But then the bus stopped at a signal, and more people entered. Among them was a frail old woman, wearing a faded shawl and holding a small cloth bag. She looked around for an empty seat, but found none. She held onto the pole weakly, her hands trembling slightly. Ayesha opened her eyes and saw her. Without thinking twice, she stood up and smiled gently. "Auntie, please sit," she said softly. The old woman looked at her with surprise, as if she wasn't used to kindness. Slowly, she placed her bag on the seat and sat down, holding Ayesha's hand to steady herself. "Thank you, Beta," she whispered. Ayesha smiled back and stood nearby, holding onto the rail. It was nothing, just a small gesture. But somehow it made her feel human again. For a moment she felt seen. She didn't know that this small act would lead to something far deeper than she could ever imagine. As the bus continued down the road, the old woman kept glancing at Ayesha. Her eyes were warm, yet heavy with unspoken memories. After a while, she gently tugged at Ayesha's sleeve. "Beta, what is your name?" she asked. "Ayesha." She replied with a smile. "Him." The old woman nodded thoughtfully. "You have your mother's manners." Ayesha looked confused. "My mother." The old woman smiled faintly. "Not your mother specifically, but someone's mother. Someone raised you with love." Ayesha's chest tightened. Her mother had always taught her to be kind, to give without expecting anything in return. But lately, kindness felt pointless. The world didn't reward good people. It overlooked them. The old woman continued, as if reading her thoughts. "You know, I've been taking this bus for months. Every day I stand. No one offers a seat. Not even the young boys who sit comfortably with their headphones." Ayesha glanced around. Some passengers looked away, pretending not to hear. Others avoided eye contact. She felt a sudden ache in her chest. How many people suffered quietly while others ignored them? The old woman sighed deeply. "People think kindness is lost these days, but you reminded me it still exists." Ayesha smiled, but inside, she felt a pinch of guilt. If only she were as kind to herself as she was to others. She hesitated, then asked softly, "Auntie, do you live alone?" The old woman nodded slowly. "Yes, my husband passed away years ago. My children live abroad. They send money, but—" Her voice cracked slightly. "Money cannot sit beside you. It cannot hold your hand when you are lonely." Ayesha felt tears prickling at her eyes. She had been so absorbed in her own struggles that she forgot everyone carries burdens. Then the old woman reached into her bag and pulled out a small, carefully folded handkerchief. It was soft, embroidered with delicate flowers. "This was my daughter's," she said quietly. "She used to carry it to school. When she was your age, she was like you, full of kindness." Ayesha swallowed. "Where is she now?" The old woman looked out of the window. "She never came home one day." The words hung heavily in the air. Ayesha's heart dropped. Silence filled the bus. Even the passengers nearby froze, listening. "I lost her many years ago," the old woman whispered. "But when you offered me your seat, For a moment, I felt like she was still here. Ayesha stood frozen, unable to speak. The old woman looked up at her, smiling through glistening eyes. "You didn't just offer me a seat," she said softly. "You gave me a memory. You reminded me of love." Something inside Ayesha broke and healed at the same time. She blinked rapidly, holding back tears, but they slipped down anyway. The old woman gently wiped them with the same embroidered handkerchief. "You are stronger than you think, Beta," she whispered. "Life may ignore you now, but one day it will recognize your kindness." Ayesha's lips trembled. "Auntie, can I sit with you until your stop?" The old woman nodded gratefully, shifting slightly to make room. Ayesha sat beside her. They didn't speak for a while. They didn't need to. The bus moved through the city, lights passing by like falling stars. Ayesha felt something warm, a strange peace that she hadn't felt in months. Her problems were still there, but somehow they felt lighter, because now she knew she mattered. Soon the bus reached the old woman's stop. She slowly stood up, holding Ayesha's hand tightly. Before stepping off, she pressed the embroidered handkerchief into Ayesha's palm. "Keep this," she said, "whenever you feel alone. Remember, kindness always finds its way back." Ayesha shook her head, overwhelmed. "Auntie, I can't." But the old woman smiled. "You already gave me something priceless. Let me give back." She patted Ayesha's cheek gently, then stepped off the bus. Ayesha sat still, clutching the handkerchief against her chest. Tears flowed silently. Passengers around her watched, but for once, they didn't look away. Some even smiled softly. One young man stood up and offered his seat to another elderly passenger. A small chain of kindness began to ripple through the bus. Ayesha wiped her tears and smiled. Maybe she hadn't found a job yet. Maybe life was still uncertain. But today, she found something far more precious: purpose. She looked out of the window, whispering to herself, "I will keep giving, no matter how small, because kindness always comes back." A small seat, a simple gesture, yet it touched a heart and healed another. Kindness costs nothing, but gives everything. So if you ever get the chance, be someone's reason to believe in good again.